All right, this is your first question. All right, so what on earth is happening for the rest of the class? We have over an hour. I'm not sure how much of it we're going to use and how much we aren't going to use. But basically, the goal for the final bit of this class is, having taught for many semesters and assigned papers for many semesters, I find that very often writing a paper can be way more difficult, stressful, and unpleasant than it needs to be. Also, very often, professors or teachers or anyone have this bad habit of saying, write a paper, without saying what on earth they're looking for, or why you're doing it, or why you should give a damn about it. So, that's a bad habit. Is just the fact of the matter is most of the people who go into teaching, or especially into teaching at a university level, were a very small percentage of the people who go to college. They are very often the people who liked learning more than anyone else did, which is why they decided to do it for the rest of their lives. So they have this strange assumption that everybody else cares about it and knows what to do as much as they do, which leads to people going, write a paper, and then nobody having any idea what to do. So my thing I want to do this class and next class and any time in between that you want is try to make it so it's clear what I'm looking for, why I care that you all write papers. Like, I assign papers because I think it is a useful thing for students to do. I think it is helpful to you all in your lives in general. I think it is useful for me to judge how well you're doing, and I think it is just a good skill to have. I think it's something which, because so few people take the time to actually go, this is how to write a paper, this is why it's useful, people don't appreciate what it actually teaches or can teach. And very often, because professors don't take the time to say this, you end up they end up just being these big stressful things that nobody gets anything out of. The other reason I want to do this is because, like, you are all, what we said before about property, you're all going to put in effort on this paper. And I don't want you to put in effort and feel like this was a waste of your time, which unfortunately happens all too often. When you get an assignment, I want you to turn in your assignment and be like, you know what? There are things I probably would have preferred doing, like, anything not academic related, but when I finish this paper, this is something that I don't want to think back on as this was hell and I wish I hadn't had to do this. Like, I want you to feel like, you know what, that wasn't too terrible. And so, as I said before, the main goal of the step one to writing a paper is, if you are getting stressed about it and want to talk to me, talk to me. If you're struggling, hitting writer's block, that's okay. Talk to me. This is something where philosophy is hard enough and the world is a stressful enough place these days that your papers do not have to be another stressful thing. So anything to make it as unstressful and pleasant as possible. I'm not saying you're going to enjoy it. Some of you might be surprised and actually end up doing something which you actually kind of enjoy or at least found interesting. But I'm not promising it's going to be enjoyable. What I'm promising is I will do all I can to make it as pleasant as it possibly can be. And what that means today is just like talking generally about why we're writing papers, why I assign them as I do, and what you should be trying to do in it, one, for your own well-being, and two, to get a good grade at the end of it. So, first things first, a lot of your professors just say, assign a paper. Here, write it. Why on earth do professors write papers in the first place, or ask you to write papers in the first place? You did.
To show what you have learned and to make sure, like, you are extremely interested for the professor to write your recommendation letter.
So that is one thing to do. It's basically one thing you can do is you're trying to prove to your professor that you understand the material. And so some professors are very strong about this. They really value what they study. So for instance, if you're somebody in like history, and if you go into history, you find history really interesting. And so some people really want you to prove that you understand this thing that they find interesting. So that's part of it. For me, I'm going to be honest, if at the end of this semester you've forgotten all the details of everything, I'm not going to take it personal. I want this writing process to be something that you get something out of as well. So it's not just, part of it is just proving that you understand it, and I think this class has more practical implications than a lot of others. So if like you're talking about personal privacy or something like that in your paper, if you can really understand it, and you can show that you can really understand it, then you understand it well enough that when you read a terms of service 2 years down the line for some new app, you might know what on earth to be worried about and what not to. So that's one benefit. But even if you don't have that, why else is it worthwhile?
Yeah, I do think that's crucial, but I think also it just holds. I think professors do it to hold students accountable.
Yeah, so there is another thing, which is just like part of what going through school is learning how to do the things that you're going to have to do for the rest of your life. Like that's just, and it's, you know, all the way down from kindergarten. With little kids, you're teaching them how to do basic things that they're going to need to learn how to do for their whole lives, like share, and things like sit still. And then as you go up, it's still the same idea, it's just our brains get bigger and more powerful, and therefore, you also just like, part of it is just, you know, proving that you know, like just training your body to get things in on time, and to read instructions and that sort of stuff. Again, you were getting enough of that crap. That's one I'm not as strongly on. But there is a matter of accountability as well, of you have to be held accountable to some degree. Like I can't just give everybody an A for simply existing. I could actually in theory, I think, but it doesn't feel right.
Critical thinking could be one.
Yeah, so here's the last, and this is the one that I personally care about the most, is critical thinking and persuasive structure / organized thoughts. So, you go around in the world and you interact with other people. Sometimes it's in a school classroom, sometimes it's a family environment, sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's lovers. At the end of the day, it's all the same general thing. You are talking to each other, you are trying to do things which make other people happy with you, and that respect them and make them happy, and that make you happy and okay with who you are. And also sometimes in the process of this, you want other people to do what you would like them to do so that you get something out of it and benefit. Basically, all of the world is just getting around, surviving, and interacting with other people in a way in which everyone benefits to the best of their ability. Or at the very least, you benefit to a way that you can be happy about without pissing off everyone else to such a degree. It comes down to things as simple as like, you know, you get in a fight with your significant other. You have to talk about how on earth are you going to get through this fight. That sort of thing is the same. So what I want to think about with these papers is the things that you're doing in this paper are not some special skill totally divorced from everything else you do in your life. It is rather one particular way of practicing the very same things which are going to be useful to you in everything you ever do. If you have children, the things that end up you do in these papers are just an artificial way of practicing the very same skills that you have with a child. If a child is having a temper tantrum, you want them to stop. There are many approaches you can take. One of them is to convince them that they don't want to cry anymore. And the skills which you practice writing a paper are very similar skills to the skills of trying to convince this child to stop crying. Or your partner has some sort of, has a very stressful day, and you two have both had stressful days, you've picked a fight with each other. The next day, you're still pissed off, and you need to work through it. The same skills which you're using writing a paper can be helpful when you're having a fight with someone and trying to work it out. Now, if your goal is to physically harm them, this isn't going to help you. But most of the time, if it's somebody we love and care about, our goal is not to cause them physical harm. It's to try to get things equal again. And the same things which are useful here. Or you might, you know, be called upon to vote in an election. You know what's useful? To be able to tell when a politician or somebody else is saying something which you can recognize, oh, they're saying something, and it's actually, what they're saying actually makes sense, and is actually going to help me in my life and the people I care about who surround me. And that person over there is just spewing bullshit and just saying angry things in an interesting tone. And being able to tell, like, oh, that has substance and is useful, and that's what I should pay attention to, versus, oh, over here, this person is just being angry. And even though it's interesting to watch their facial expressions, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good leader or somebody who's going to have my interests in mind. So that's the part that matters the most to me. And that's what philosophy, as this class, is really about, is come whatever else, I hope that by the time the semester ends, you are a little bit more comfortable looking at complex issues, not getting scared about them, not getting stressed about them, and just being able to look at them and go, oh, that's an interesting thing, let's analyze this. So that's the part that I care about most for this class. So, with that in mind, what does that mean these papers are like? What on earth is it to, if this is the one I really care about, the critical thinking, organizing, structuring thought, and I say it's got something very similar to what goes on in your everyday lives, what does that mean practically? What is it I'm looking for in one of these papers? What should you be looking to do?
It's pretty opinionated.
Yeah, so here's the idea, is whenever you're having any sort of interaction with somebody in which you're trying to convince them of something, it can be, where do you want to go to lunch? You want Mexican, your best friend wants Chinese, and you really don't want Chinese. What are you going to try to do? Convince them to get Mexican with you. You have some goal you want, something you want them to come to accept, and you want to, without physically beating them, because that will lead to other problems, convince them to come to your side. This is something which we encounter, countless times every day. Somebody approaches you on the subway and they're rude, and you want them to stop being rude. Your parents say, no, I'm not going to give you $20 to go to the movies. And you say, Mom, let me explain to you why you should. That sort of thing is what writing a philosophy paper is. The only difference is you're doing it on a piece of paper, and you have more time to think about it, and the topic is slightly different. But that's the general idea. And this is, where's the prior reading? So this is the first line, which is, a philosophy paper consists in a reasoned, defense of / argument for some position. I think that's his word. No, some claim. So, this is all that a philosophy paper is at the end of the day. It's a reasoned defense or argument for, no, these are both two, some claim. And this is something which is not unique to philosophy. This defending a claim or arguing for something is something we're doing in our everyday lives. And that's something to remember, is this is not, at the end of the day, the only difference is that I'm asking you to write about imaginary people in imaginary situations, which were designed to, 1, be mildly creative and interesting, and 2, make it hard for you if you run out of time to plagiarize it, and therefore come to me and say, and again, I said this at the first class of the semester, but I'll say it again. If you are, personal stuff comes up, or you hit writer's block so bad that the day before the paper's due, you still don't have it and are feeling the urge to plagiarize, email me, talk to me. I would much, much rather you ask for an extension last minute than plagiarize or something like that. I'm much more lenient, and as long as you show me that you are interested and engaged and are getting something out of it, like, I am very willing to give extensions. Also, if it's the sort of thing where you get, like I've had people before, you get carried away and suddenly your paper is blown up to twice as long as it was supposed to be, and you're still writing at like 12:30 the night before it's due, email me and say, Professor, I need to go to sleep. And be like, can I have 2 days of extension? The answer almost certainly will be yes. Like, there are other people out there who are going to teach you to meet hard deadlines. My job, what I care about, is this. So if it takes you a little extra time, that's fine. I want you to write something you're happy with and content with, and you feel you've gotten something out of it.
In other words, you want students who have the potential to do this, like, is very interested in your class.
Not so much, like, what I want is people in this world who, Yeah, here's the thing, is we live in a world in which most of our communication takes place on Twitter in yelling rampages. I want it to be the case that if you come across an angry message on Twitter, you can pause, think, what is going on in this angry message? And if you, at the end of the day, like it just so happens that I'm teaching this cyber ethics class, which I think is a fascinating topic, which interacts with things in your everyday life. But even if at the end of this, you've come out of this class and think, I never want to touch a computer again, I still think that these skills are useful and things like this. So it's not so much that I care about it for my class, it's more that I just like, I live in a world in which I think the human mind and the brain is fascinating, and I think it's helpful to put a little more emphasis on the thinking part and less on the unthinking emotional part. So that's kind of the context. And one of the ways in which we do this is we come up with reasoned defenses or arguments for some claim. So, in the case of a philosophy paper, it's going to be a claim. So the way the prompts are written are basically, I present you with an imaginary scenario. The first one is the first one the MTI one?
Yeah.
So the first one is, imagine the Metro cards go away and they decide to install retinal scanners. So like an Easy Pass on a car, so if you drive with an Easy Pass, you just go through and there's like a little radiation and it takes out of your account. Now imagine that instead of an Easy Pass, every subway terminal just scanned your eyes and your eyes were connected to a balance that it just, every time you walked through, it scanned your eyes and took out 275. What would be the positives of this? What would be the negatives? And basically, the claim at the end, the thing that I'm asking you to answer is, should this exist or should this not exist? It's a yes or no question. There are two obvious sides to it. And all three of them, there are two obvious general sides. Now so in this case, the option A is, this thing is wrong and it shouldn't exist. Option B is, this thing's okay and it should exist. So those are the two general positions. Now, the devil's in the details. When you're actually writing this paper, it's not enough to say, I think it should exist, period, turn it in. That's skipping this part. But the core, the start, is you need to, for your own sake, decide which side you want to argue for. And so this is the difference between, there are many different types of papers out there, or writings. Some of them are just written for entertainment. Some of them are written for just informing you of things. So for instance, if you read a news article, in theory, what it's supposed to do is just tell you the way something is. If you read a sports story that just tells you like what happened in the game, it's just a description. That's a different sort of thing. What we want here, or like Harry Potter or something like that, that's designed to entertain. These sorts of papers are designed to persuade and convince. So in this case, you're trying to convince me, who's reading it, that one of these two positions is the correct one to have. So in this case, you're trying to convince me this eye scanner should not exist, or this eye scanner should exist. The second paper, Christina.
I don't know like when to bring up this question, but I guess the question that I've been having all along when reading this entire prompt is like, I'm a computer science major because I like kind of like, you know, but thinking about things for me is like the most difficult part, so I almost wish there was some sort of like rules of like structure, like, you know, in like how to analyze the MTI, because like when I think about it, I'm like, oh my god, so many different things like can happen.
So
Same thing I wanted to bring up. It's are we supposed to structurize as in an academic article and abstract data, method, discussion, conclusion?
And this is the thing which you are being
I don't like the scientific.
tested. So here's the thing. What you two just pointed to is exactly what the real crux of the issue is. You go out in the world, and this is what you face. When Donald Trump comes out and says something that you might not agree with, he doesn't lay it out nicely in terms of abstract conclusion, everything else. Your job is to look at what he says and go, this is what at the core he's trying to say, and this is why it's wrong. Or when your significant other is screaming at you angrily, because humans fight, when this happens, how do you go, oh, this is what's really going on here, how do I solve it? Things are not laid out neatly. What often has to happen is you force structure onto an unstructured world, and that is what critical thinking is. It's finding the structure that's hidden and then forcing things which come at you from different directions into a structure. And that's, so the reason I can't fully give you a correct answer to this is, one, the world is not fully black and white. And the fact is, there are many ways to cook an egg, break an egg, skin a cat, whatever the expression is. And there are many equally good ways of writing this paper. And another thing I want you to do, and what's interesting, is writing papers is also a good way to learn about yourself. Like, what do you find interesting? What do you feel like okay doing? What is it that you are struggling with, and you now know, if I ever have to do this for a job, fuck that, I'm quitting. Like, that's something that is useful to know. So if you're finding this sort of stuff, then maybe it's not for you, but it's still a skill to have. Or maybe you find, like, you know what, going down this path, this particular topic, reading about this privacy stuff, I just want to know everything about privacy law in the United States. Like, this is fascinating to me. And that's the other reason I don't want to tell you exactly what to do, is I want it to be open-ended enough that you can take your project in the way you want it to go. So if, like, the way the papers are structured, and here I can give you like some general structure. Let me erase this over here. So first off, the other two paper prompts, I just want to quickly address them. The second one of them's about missiles and Batman.
War games.
So one of them is, imagine that a company that designs missiles in perfectly ordinary, nothing's really obviously gone wrong, but given the nature of computer technology and everything else, some missiles misfire and shoot down a passenger airplane and 200 people die. Now the international community is calling for the company to be dissolved. The CEO is saying, you can fine us, but don't dissolve us. Who's right? Should this company be dissolved, or should they just be fined? Or, and this is opening it up, is it something in between? Is it that the CEO and some high-ups should be fired? This is where you have options, and there's not going to be a right answer. And here's the other thing. I will never take off or grade you for what conclusion you reach at the end. I have had people who have argued for things which at the end of the day I fundamentally disagreed with, but they did it really well, and it was nicely structured, and I could tell they thought about it, and they got an A. And then there were other people who said basically exactly what I believe, but in a way which was harder to follow, and they did not get an A. It's about how you do it, not what your final conclusion is. So that's the other one. So it's just the claim. So for the first prompt, the claim is MTI should/shouldn't exist. Two, the
Did you make that up yourself?
Yeah.
That's really clever.
Thanks. Missile company should be dissolved / shouldn't. Okay. And then the third one was the I can't remember the details of this one. Is this the one with something to do with somebody hacking something? Who can help me out here?
It says, should you side with the Hawks and push for a
Oh, that's what it is, yeah.
response on North Korea, or with the Doves and do nothing, or take a middle course?
Okay, so basically the idea is, imagine that North Korean hackers hack into, I can't remember the details of it. Basically, a hacking of like an American power system or something along those lines happens, and there's basically conclusive proof that it's North Korea. By some magical state of affairs, you are now the president of the United States. And now, you can imagine it being like a Freaky Friday, where like you and Donald Trump have switched bodies, or like through some crazy thing, you are now inside, you just somehow become president. And you are now being pushed from people who are saying, we need to invade North Korea today, we need to teach them a lesson. And then you have other people saying, no, you shouldn't do that. You should not invade North Korea. Which side is correct? So on that one, or I guess, the U.S. should / shouldn't invade North Korea. People's Republic. I think it's People's Republic. Just leave it. Alright, so that is these are the core, the claims. Everything in your paper basically is just 3 to 5 pages expanding on this. So in your paper, if you choose prompt number, and also if you hate all of these prompts and want to come up with one of your own, and shoot me an email and we can figure out something you're more happy with. But I tried to make these hopefully mildly interesting. So one of these is, should you or should you not invade North Korea? And all your paper is just a really long-winded way of answering that question.
But be careful, because you know Kim Jong-un might see
Yeah,
that.
exactly, yeah. 2, the missile company should or shouldn't be dissolved. All it is 3 to 5 pages explaining why or why not you believe this position. Same thing with this one. The whole purpose of the paper is just to lay out why this new system should or shouldn't be allowed to continue to exist. And just to make it clear that this is like not in any way like crazy. This, if you are talking to your mom and saying, no mom, we shouldn't go to Red Lobster tonight, we should go to
Olive Garden.
Olive Garden instead, and then you proceed to have a 10-minute conversation with her about why Olive Garden is better than Red Lobster, that is basically this. It's just a long-winded way of saying, we should go to Olive Garden, not Red Lobster. And the reason why you have to go long-winded is because in everyday lives, you can't just we don't have mind control, and we can't force people to do everything they want all the time. And no matter how powerful somebody is, they can't force you. They will try to persuade you, you will try to persuade someone else. And so this is just that. All this is a philosophy class related version of convincing your mom you want to go to Olive Garden. So, that's the general gist. This is number 3. You have some claim. And now, if you can get somebody to agree with you, you've succeeded. And that's what the point of this paper is. Think about that claim. Prove to me that you're right. Prove to me